3 fake HOA security officers kicked down a homeowner's door, convinced their self-appointed authority mattered more than the law. They thought they could bully their way in using intimidation and arrogance to force compliance, but they didn't expect 90 kilograms of pure pitbull justice waiting on the other side. And now, instead of enforcing rules, they're crying to the courts, trying to sue the very man whose home they invaded. But just wait until you hear how this showdown unfolded and why justice came with teeth this time. John Carter had been dealing with HOA nonsense for as long as he had lived in this neighborhood, and if there was one thing he knew for sure, it was that these people had way too much time on their hands. What was supposed to be a quiet suburban retreat had turned into a dictatorship run by a bunch of self-important retirees who thought their little rule book gave them the power of a federal agency. They policed everything: grass-length mailbox colors, even the shade of people's Christmas lights. And while most of his neighbors grit their teeth and played along to avoid the drama, John didn't play by their rules, because John wasn't even in the damn HOA. His property wasn't under their jurisdiction. He had bought his house before the HOA had formed, which meant they had zero legal authority over him. And trust him, he had made that crystal clear on multiple occasions. Yet here they were again, 3 middle-aged men in khakis and fake security vests, standing on his porch like they were serving a search warrant. They knocked, not politely, not like neighbors, but with that slow, deliberate rhythm that screamed power trip. John didn't move. He wasn't about to rush to the door like some scared homeowner being summoned by the King's Guards. No, he took his time, mostly because he was watching Bruno, his 200 pounds muscle-packed pole, who had already picked up on the bad energy and was pacing behind him like a loaded spring. Bruno wasn't barking yet, but his ears were pinned back, his tail was stiff, and the low rumbling growl vibrant in his chest told John everything he needed to know. These guys were already on borrowed time. Finally, John strolled to the door and cracked it open just enough to see their smug faces. Can I help you? The guy in the middle, obviously the self-appointed leader, puffed up his chest like he was about to deliver a Supreme Court ruling. Mr. Carter, we need to discuss your fence. It's violating HOA guidelines, and we've sent multiple notices. John sighed loudly, barely hiding his eye roll. I told you, he said, voice flat. I'm not in the HOA. My fence, my rules. The guy smirked, tilting his head like he was dealing with an unruly student. We have the authority to enforce community standards. Either you comply or we escalate. John raised an eyebrow. Escalate what? You gonna find me? No, the guy said, voice dripping with that fake security guard confidence. We'll have to take action ourselves. And that was when John's gut told him something was off. Most HOA clowns just bluffed. They sent passive-aggressive letters. They threatened nonsense fines. But these guys, the way they stood there, too sure of themselves, too comfortable. It didn't sit right. John shut the door, locked it, and then bang, the door exploded inward, the cheap lock snapping like a toothpick under the force of the impact. John barely had time to register what had just happened before their self-righteous grins twisted into pure, undiluted horror, because behind that door, Bruno launched forward like a missile. Everything collapsed into pure chaos in the span of a heartbeat. Bruno roared a deep guttural sound that wasn't just a bark but a warning from something ancient and primal, the kind of sound that short-circuits your brain and tells you without a doubt that you've just made the biggest mistake of your life. The three wannabe cops had zero time to process what was happening before 90 kilograms of muscle teeth and pure animal rage came barreling straight at them. The first guy, the leader, the one who had been acting like he was the law, fell backwards so fast his own feet betrayed him. 1 second he was full of arrogance. The next his arms flailed as he hit the floor like a sack of bricks. His smug face gone, erased. All that remained was sheer unfiltered terror. The second guy, he froze completely. Maybe he thought if he didn't move, Bruno wouldn't see him. Fatal error. Bruno didn't even look twice at him because the third guy had already turned and ran. Smartest decision he'd made all day. Too bad it was already too late. Bruno was on him in 2 strides. The pit bull launched, collided with the guy's back and sent him onto the front lawn with a bone-rattling thud that made John wince out of secondhand pain. The scream that followed, high-pitched, desperate, the kind of sound that would haunt a man in his sleep for years. John strolled out onto the porch like he had all the time in the world, arms crossed, watching the absolute train wreck unfold in front of him. You were saying? The leader, now a human embodiment of regret, scrambled back onto his feet, his khakis 2 shades darker than before. His voice cracked. Call him off, call him off. John leaned against the door frame, raising an eyebrow. Oh, now you want to negotiate? The second guy, finally breaking free from his frozen state, noted. The hell out of there. No words, no dignity, just straight up sprinted down the street like a cartoon character, arms flailing, legs moving like they were controlled by a glitching video game AI. Meanwhile, Bruno had the third guy completely pinned. The poor idiot lay on his back, too afraid to move, eyes locked on the massive jaws hovering just inches from his face. John let the silence stretch, let the guy marinate in his own bad decisions. Then finally he whistled. Bruno let him go. Bruno let out one final deep growl, a promise that next time he wouldn't be so generous. Then slowly, with deliberate menacing slowness, he stepped back. The guy on the ground didn't move, not an inch. He was probably just trying to figure out if he was still alive. The leader still stumbling, still desperately clinging to the last scraps of his shattered ego, pointed a shaky finger. Yeah, you'll regret this. John tilted his head, a smirk playing at his lips. I don't know, man. Looks like you're the one regretting things right now. And just like that they ran. Man, John dusted off his hands, turned to Bruno, who was wagging his tail like he hadn't just traumatized 3 fully grown men into reconsidering all their life choices. Good boy. JN figured that was the end of it. The HOA clowns had run for their lives. Bruno had gotten his workout for the week, and John had settled into the smug satisfaction of a job well done. Then came the knock, not the passive-aggressive "let's talk about your fence" knock, not the siege signature "we think we're cops but we're not" knock. No, this one was different, firm, measured, absolute. John sighed before even getting up. Here we go. When he swung open the door, it wasn't some khaki-wearing Aegon standing there. It was an actual cop. The uniform was pressed, the badge caught the morning sun, and the man behind it had that non-nonsense expression of someone who had probably spent his entire career dealing with dumb calls like this. Mr. Carter, the officer said, "Do you mind if we talk?" John dragged a hand down his face. He wasn't in the mood for this. He'd already wasted enough time on these HOA clowns, and now they were wasting police resources too. But fine, whatever, Leighton play. Yeah, sure, he muttered, stepping aside as soon as the cop crossed the threshold. Bruno lifted his head, locked eyes on the officer, and went completely still. Not aggressive, not lunging, just watching, sizing him up like A wolf does a potential threat muscles coiled beneath his sleek coat to his credit. The cop didn't flinch, smart guy. Either he had enough training to know exactly what not to do, or he just had experience with big dogs. Either way, he passed Bruno's first test. That didn't mean John was about to make this easy for him. The cop cleared his throat. Asterisk. We got a report that you assaulted 3 HOA security officers. Asterisk. John blinked, then without even trying to stop himself, he laughed, not just a chuckle, not a smirk, a full-bodied head tilted back. Are you serious right now? Laugh. When he finally wiped the corner of his eye, he saw the cop looking at him like, this is not the reaction I was expecting. Asterisk. The security officers. Asterisk. John repeated, still grinning. Asterisk. You mean the guys who kicked down my door? Asterisk. The officer's face barely moved, but John caught the slightest twitch of an eyebrow. That's what they said. The cop replied, his voice still neutral. Asterisk. They claim you set your dog on them. Asterisk. John's grin widened into something downright dangerous. Amused. Set my dog on them, he echoed, crossing his arms. Asterisk. No, officer, I didn't set my dog on them. Bruno here simply reacted to a home invasion as any loyal, well-trained guard dog would. Asterisk. Bruno, as if on cue, let out a low, drawn-out yawn, the kind that somehow still sounded threatening. The cop hesitated just for a second, not like he was doubting John's story, more like he was realizing just how stupid the situation was. John could see the gears turning in his head. So 3 middle-aged guys kicked down this man's door and are now crying to the police because they got exactly what they deserved. But being the professional that he was, the officer didn't say that. Instead, he asked, asterisk, do you have security footage? Asterisk. JN's smirk turned into a full-blown grin. Oh, buddy, he said, already pulling out his phone. Asterisk. I got 4K night vision, multiple angles, slow motion replay. Hell, I could cut you together a whole highlight reel if you want. Asterisk. He swiped through his crystal clear camera feed and handed the officer the phone. The cop held it steady, watching as the footage rolled. The self-important HOA be storming onto John's porch, the cheap lock snapping as they forked their way in their faces, immediately transforming from smug to horrified. Bruno, 90 kilograms of pure animal fury exploding through the doorway like a wrecking ball, the leader falling flat on his ass, the second guy freezing in terror, and the third one taking off like he was in a horror movie, only to get bulldozed by Bruno. Imprint the high-pitched glass-shattering scream that erupted from his throat. John strolling out like a man who had all the time in the world, watching the chaos unfold. When the footage ended, the officer let out a low whistle and shook his head. Yeah, he muttered. Asterisk. That's going to be a problem for them. Asterisk. Number 2 days later, John was kicked back in his chair, sipping his coffee and basking in the peaceful silence of not dealing with idiots when his phone rang. A no number. He eyed it for a second, debating whether to ignore it. Last thing he needed was some telemarketer trying to sell him an extended car warranty, but something told him to answer. Asterisk. Yeah, asterisk, asterisk, Mr. Carter. Asterisk, came the voice on the other end. Professional, but with an unmistakable smirk lurking behind it. Asterisk. This is Officer Reynolds. Thought you'd like to know those 3 HOA guys. They're being charged with breaking and entering asses. JN nearly spit out his coffee. A slow, satisfied chuckle rumbled from his chest as he leaned forward in his chair. Oh, I like where this is going, he said, already grinning. Reynolds sounded just as amused. Asterisk. Yeah, turns out they tried to claim they had the authority to enter your home under HOA regulations. Asterisk. John actually snorted. Asterisk. And let me guess, they don't. Asterisk. Not even close. Reynolds replied. Asterisk. Legally speaking, they had a much authority to enter your home as a Jehovah's Witness with a clipboard. Asterisk. JN let out a low whistle. Asterisk. Man, you mean to tell me that 3 grown-ass men committed an actual crime, got their asses handed to them by a dog, and then thought they could just spin the story to the cops? Asterisk. Reynolds chuckled. Asterisk. Oh, it gets better. Asterisk. JN sat up straighter. Asterisk. Oh, please tell me there's more. Asterisk. Oh, there's So much more, Reynolds said clearly. Enjoying this way too much. One of them you're going to love this, the one who got tackled. Hunes trying to sue you for emotional distress. There was silence for a moment, then John exploded with laughter, not a polite chuckle, not a mildly amused smirk, a full-bodied head thrown back, knee slapping, tears in his eyes kind of laugh. Even Bruno, lounging at his feet, perked up at the noise, tilting his head as if to say, what the hell is so funny? John barely managed to get a breath, and oh my God, oh that's precious, he wheezed. What's his argument that my dog hurt his feelings? Pretty much, Reynolds said, and John could hear the smirk in his voice. Claims he's been emotionally traumatized since the incident. John wiped his eyes, still grinning like a madman. Let me get this straight, he said, trying not to laugh again. The guy kicked in my door, illegally entered my home, and then got his ass tackled for his trouble, and now he's crying about it. Yep, and he seriously thinks that's going to fly in court. Apparently, Reynolds said. His lawyer is arguing that your dog was a lethal weapon and that he feared for his life. John snorted. Buddy, if Bruno was a lethal weapon, that man wouldn't be trying to file a lawsuit, he'd be filing for a tombstone. Reynolds actually laughed out loud at that. John sighed, shaking his head. Well, tell him I'll see him in court and tell him to bring some clean khakis this time. Will do, Reynolds said, still chuckling. John hung up, tossed his phone onto the table, and leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head. Bruno, still watching him, let out a low huff, his tail thumping lazily against the floor. John reached down and scratched behind the dog's ears. Guess we'll have to put on a show for the judge, buddy. Bruno let out a content sigh, like he already knew exactly how this was going to end. John smirked. Justice served.